Breaktime, a podcast presented by the Employment Services Center, welcomes Richard Martin, owner and CEO of Dynamo Playgrounds, located in Plantagenet, to discuss his passion for cutting-edge playground equipment and the worldwide success story of Dynamo. Richard Martin, welcome to Breaktime.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
You are the owner of a very interesting company located here in Prescott-Russell.
Yes, correct. The company name is Dynamo Industries.
Yeah.
And what we manufacture is high-end custom playground equipment for children, of course, but their main objective of our main customers would be school boards, city officials, city parks, of course, and of course, landscape architects, where we're very strong.
How long has the company been around?
I started in 1994.
Okay.
I used to work or be an employee for the Ottawa Carleton District School Board.
Gotcha.
And the main things that I did for the school board was taking care of all the outside playground equipment, of course, and anything else that pertained to outside. So that's where the experience came from. And one day I just seen an opportunity to start my own company. And I've never looked back since, but it certainly doesn't mean that it was an easy road, but certainly the vision and that I was given certainly brought me to a whole new level
Yeah.
of interest for city parks. And I say that because I was fortunate that I had a handicapped brother that was 8 years younger than I was. And he was totally handicapped, spoon-fed diaper change and he passed away at age 19. But it really gave me a perspective of a beginning when I was take him to the park. What could I do with him was a really big challenge. So only because I was physically able to pick him up and go down the slide with him was about the only thing I could do. So long story short, this comes in much later in my business ventures that this came to pass, meaning I was able to see and understand how handicapped children should be partaking in playground equipment and all. So it brought all these different types of ideas forward in my design thinking.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very human yet technical story.
Yes.
Before we do the deep dive into Dynamo and all the amazing stuff you guys make, I'm just curious, what's your background before you started this company?
Yeah.
Are you from engineering, some sort of design, or how'd you end up there?
I'll be as honest as I can with you because I did have a grade 12 education, but that's where I would have stopped. And it was life experiences that brought me eventually into the school board and taking care of all the playgrounds, etc. But it didn't mean that I was able to go into business without any struggles or learning curves. So I'd have to say that I'm going to bring in some faith into this as well because it played a huge part of my trajectory.
Your
Sorry.
path, yeah.
My path.
Yeah, I
And,
understand.
So, I at one point I just went for it,
Yeah.
and here I am today. And I've been blessed with some creativity. There's no engineering background whatsoever, so I have to be willing and able to pay for those services, which I have employees that can do that.
Yeah.
But the initial concepts of the designs of the mechanics came from me and some of the team, of course, as we go along. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of those designs online, and man, they took me back. What was the first one? The first job, the first contract, did it happen before you started your company? After?
It started when I did leave the Carleton Board of Education. I started off with trying to give the same services back that I was actually doing for the school board, and it wasn't going all that well. But I went to a trade show here in Ottawa, and I had invented a basketball system, and the basketball system was actually called the hoop away system. And basically, what it was the basketball hoop can be removed by one person with a 6-foot pole. They would hook up to the rim from the ground. It would lock into the rim, and we could remove the face of the actual rim from the backboard and bring it inside. Therefore, they would have to stop playing because there's no more rim on the backboard. And that was invented because one of the Ottawa community centers had asked me to come up with a solution for them. So it started basically there, but quickly evolved into me wanting to be the outside the box thinker. So if I had to really explain the company, it would be that complete outside the box thinking that got me to where I am today. So meaning I really had to challenge the Canadian standards. I had to challenge the American standards, and eventually in order to sell around the world, I also had to challenge the European standards.
Wow.
So, when one of my first games that came out, it was related to having a handicapped brother and how can these children actually be not only brought to a park and you park the wheels and say, watch me play, but how can we integrate them into society so that they would actually feel the same sensations and motions and actually interact with society. So one of the first games I actually invented was called an Apollo. And Apollo is basically a spinning cone style of game where at least 35 children can get on. And yes, it's spun as well, of course, just like the merry-go-rounds. But the challenging part was that it was also 13 feet off the ground. So that's where it became extremely challenging because most of the merry-go-rounds were being pulled out of the parks from all over Canada and America for possible litigation from injuries. So I had to really come back with a challenge because not only did my game spin, it was also 13 feet high off the ground. But of course, I introduced it as an ADA accessible piece of playground. Again, because we think of handicapped as wheelchair bound only. It's a completely different story. I bring a whole new understanding, meaning it could be a blind child, it could be a physical dismembered child, mental abilities. So the understanding of handicap for me had a completely different meaning.
Yeah.
That these children need to be part of society and integrate. So that was one of the first games, and then came along our second most important piece that is still a huge player in our lineup today is called the Big O Swing. So it's basically a multi-user swing seat, basically almost like a tire swing, if you wish, where a lot of children can be placed or fit inside. But we invented it as well with how can we make it as safe or safer than any swing that was out there. So we invented a special bumper system that would absorb the impact if a child was hit because there was so many children on it. So it was quite an intense time, but it took about 8 years or more before the standards finally adapted and reopened an entirely new division because of the swing that we invented.
Wow.
So, and then eventually understanding how it works with the standards, we as a company had to join the standards. So we are now and have a voting seat on the board of the Canadian Standards Association. So we help write the standards in the playground industry. We also have a voting seat in the American standards, so we also have a voting seat there. And then we're also part of an organization which is a third-party certification. It would be known basically to you as the ISO of the playground industry, but in our industry, it's abbreviated as IPMA, which basically is International Playground Equipment Manufacturers Association. So it basically just recertifies and confirms that the product is compliant. So the road was pretty intense, and
Yeah.
every time we would bring a new design, like you've seen on some of the websites, it was always questioned. Oh my God, will this actually comply to the standards? Yes or no? So it was a pretty hard game to play, but
Yeah.
eventually we're here, and we're still known as that outside the box thinker, and that we challenge the standards themselves. Otherwise, we'd be making boring playgrounds forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? It didn't even occur to me that that was a major challenge, if not one of, not the biggest, because, nowadays there's standards for everything. Everything is a big deal.
A big deal, yes.
Nah, a sidewalk ramp has standards,
Yes.
and stairs, doorways, everything. So I
Yes.
can only imagine a crazy, awesome piece of playground equipment that can be used in a variety of ways
Absolutely.
must have crazy criteria to meet.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of the things that come up more often, standards wise? The things you have to consider.
Yeah, the most dangerous ones that we always continue to have to look for would be they're called the head and neck entrapments, where if someone's body or torso or child's torso can actually fit through an opening, then we have to make sure that the head of the child can pass as well, or otherwise they're hanging. So it's those kind of things that are very at the top front of the standards, finger pinch points, eye protrusions that we have to be very careful for. If the child falls while they're running, you wouldn't want a 3-inch bolt sticking out of the structure and they get it into the eyes.
Yeah.
So all those kind of things we have to take in serious considerations.
Yeah. In a way, it's very similar to a lot of the standards for construction sites and what they have to put in
Yes.
place to protect workers.
Yes. Sometimes I do think that it becomes a bubble wrap. So in my view, there's some overkill, and the child sometimes is overprotected, or they don't feel the challenges. So we have to be careful. So that's why we always challenge what we invent, and making sure, of course, that we follow the rules. But in many cases, we have to actually help change the rules in a proven safe manner.
Yeah.
Currently, we're actually working in our facility. It's a brand new ride that has not hit the streets yet, but it'll be extremely interesting. We're about 95% there, but it'll be a multi-user track ride where you can imagine there's a tire swing style of seat where 4 or more children can be sitting inside. You can spin the seat on itself, and then you go down the track, which is about 100 feet long. So as the motion of the seat and the weight is traveling in multiple different directions, you're also traveling down the track. So it's a very unique ride that we had just patented it, and we're now about ready to hit the streets with it. So it'll be very interesting. But all this is coming out of our backyard, Plantagenet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's where you guys are, in Plantagenet.
correct.
Okay. Always been there?
When we decided to become a manufacturer in the beginning, of course, my company started out of my home,
Okay.
and I would have subbed out manufacturing to welding shops, but all the intellectual properties would have belonged to me. And then we would take it to these shops and they would make it. We would come in and do our testing and all this kind of stuff. Eventually, we landed with a manufacturer out of South Korea. So we would drop ship our product directly from the port of South Korea to any port around the world, from Chile to Australia, New Zealand, etc. So, but eventually, it became problematic with quality control issues and those kind of things, and controlling our costs. So at that time, I was actually in the Rockland on Industrial Avenue.
Okay.
And eventually I had to make a bold decision that I would take matters into my own hands and become our own manufacturer.
Wow.
And that happened in very early 2017, which is when we purchased the building in Plantagenet. And within the year, we purchased the building beside us. And now we're actually currently building a third building because we have to fulfill the orders that we have. So
Wow.
things are going well.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
What's your business model? How do people purchase your product through dealers, directly through you? How does it
Well,
work?
there's a variety of ways of doing this, and we've tried them all. And right now, we still have not found the perfect solution. And I'll explain what I mean by that because the portfolio that we have is outside the box, as I've mentioned many times. But if you can imagine that most playground equipment manufacturers would be a car, and our product is a Harley Davidson, a motorcycle. So we look that different and interesting, but we still don't have a full portfolio that a distributor would take on our products only
Okay.
until we keep growing our portfolio. And it is growing. We're coming out as well with a brand new Woodline series that is gorgeous. But it's a custom product, okay? So we've tried direct sales, very expensive, where we would send employees working for us on long business trips to Chile, Portugal, and
Okay.
California, and then we dropped them there for a month, and they do all kinds of visits and presentations to working with distributors who sell other products. And of course, they have mandates to meet criterias of sales quotas for their own products. So the focus becomes on that, and our Harley Davidson, if you wish, remains on the shelf. So we've had it hasn't been an easy way of finding perfect distribution. But
Yeah.
as our portfolio continues to grow, it's becoming easier and easier for us to now say, we're looking for someone that lives in the state of Florida, and would you take on our product portfolio and remain as a exclusive dealer for us and not let them sell other products because we need the 100% attention. Our
Yeah.
products are so unique that they would demand that a presentation be shown to them so that they understand what we do.
Absolutely. And I believe you because it's just based on what I've seen. And as you said, it is a custom product. It's not something you can easily explain. Like, oh, you've seen thousands of these. You know what it is. You haven't.
Correct.
So you need to put people in context in a really interesting way without actually having access to the build somewhere. So you have to allow them to dream a bit. You mentioned you were sending employees to various countries. So you obviously sell internationally.
Yes.
And you mentioned standards from around the world earlier.
Yes.
How did that happen? When did you get your first overseas client?
That happened about maybe 15 years ago, actually. And one of the reasons why we decided to go international was because when the winter arrived in Canada, no one was buying playground equipment. So it was very
Right.
cyclical. So
Right.
my initial, I went to California, Florida, where there was always sunshine, or at least, although it was still winter, you could still sell playgrounds.
Right.
But eventually that took me to international trade shows, and I started from there to going to different places around the world and finding distributors.
Okay. That makes sense. Of course it's winter.
Yes.
It's always
Yes.
winter.
So on the international scale, we targeted countries that are, complete opposite from us.
Yeah.
So from Chile, when it's winter here in Chile, it's summer. In Australia, it's summer and opposite. And New Zealand, etc. So that's why I decided to go international.
And how did it go? Did it work well? Is it still going on? Is there a country that is a bigger client than another? Does one come to mind?
Yes, Singapore,
Oh.
Chile, China is also a good customers, good distributors. But it hasn't been easy. It's a tough world that we play in. So when you expose yourself around the world, people copy the products.
Yes.
And we found ourselves in many situations where our products were being copied. And so sometimes it's difficult to protect ourselves against all of that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
and a patent is only as good as the millions of dollars you have in the bank to defend it, because it costs. It's a significant cost. So it's an unfortunate game that we always have to be on guard.
Yeah. And it feels like the music business in a way, right?
Yes.
And you don't know what's going on far from your home, overseas.
Yeah.
I mean, how can
But
you know?
I will say that although many times they don't copy the products, they come up with similar products. And I know for sure, even being a small company out of Plantagenet, we played such a significant role in changing the industry. Because I can assure you that when I started, the playgrounds were pretty boring. And now many manufacturers have a competing product because they liked what they see. So I still have to deal with that as well. So, if we come up with a beautiful game, it takes about 3 to 5 years before they have a model of their own, although they don't copy 100%. But it's hard to get around a design patent.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with the giants of the industry, it's difficult. But, we just keep inventing new ones and just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because I've been dying to ask you this. How does it work designing something new? I was pondering this on the way here. Does it start with a need? Does it start with an ask? Or are you simply brainstorming, going outside the box in a group and trying to figure out what is the coolest thing we can invent next?
Yeah, I have the fortunate opportunity to have some employees that are very creative themselves, and we toss ideas around, and we just try to find a niche market that we know it'll be an interesting game that will draw, especially some of the older children, because I know you can have a very gorgeous design of traditional playgrounds. They look beautiful, beautiful plastics and slides and decks, but the entire budget goes to the erecting the game from the ground, meaning it looks very nice, but the play value starts to take some significant decrease because everything is going into the structure to keep it off the ground or have it standing. So, in most cases, if you took the slide away, you're taking the heart of the structure. So this is what really challenges my thoughts and what do we design next, and how is it going to bring back an 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old child to the park and utilize the equipment because they find it extremely exciting. So that's always at the forefront of the challenge. Would a 12-year-old child come back to the park and use this equipment? And if they do, is it going to be safe? Right. So it's typically what leads our thinking. For example, we have a game that will hold around 90 children.
Okay.
It's a very large spinning game, and the floor is a 20-foot diameter floor. And as it spins, we have 4 spinning pods as well that spin counter from what your actions are going to. So if you can imagine simply saying a double spinning action. So I can assure you that if a 12, 13, 14, 16, 18-year-old child or adolescent or
teenager,
come to the park and utilize, we know we have a huge hit.
Yeah.
But that's what we focus on, is how can we bring, because I know for sure if those kids are playing, then the 8-year-olds and down are dying to get on it as well.
Absolutely. And that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Are adults your gauge for success?
They are. Mom and dad play.
Yeah.
Grandpas, grandmas, babysitters, they all want to get on. And it's pretty interesting to watch it
Right.
if you go into a park and you see it in action. It's interesting because the mother or the babysitter will grab the child, sit down on the floor, and let some of the other ones spin. But again, what you see is a group action of children playing together in society with interacting.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you said that, because when I looked at the pictures of all the various equipment on your website, I'd love to try that. Like 13-year-old Cedric would love to try that.
yes.
Right now,
Yes.
Cedric would like to try that one.
Yeah.
So
Most of the time, the parents are the most fearful of the children getting injured because our games are very high. I mean, you can go to the park in Rockland by the riverfront,
Okay.
and we have a pyramid net there, for example, that is 27 feet off the ground.
Wow.
So it's very challenging, and most of the time, like I said, it will be the mother typically will be afraid because the child is very high, but dad will climb up and they'll be shaking the net, and the mother is having a bit of a panic attack on the ground. But our games are extremely safe. So
Where can we find them locally? Rockland's a good example. Anything?
yeah, Rockland has been a great customer of ours. City of Ottawa, of course.
Okay.
I would have to say though our strongest market is in the United States. There's an open mindedness of being more challenging or being acceptable of more challenging equipment in the United States. Unfortunately, Ontario, I'd have to say it's one of our toughest markets for taking on not a risk but taking the risk for something new.
Okay.
So it took a little longer. We're almost there because they're seeing that these games are being installed everywhere, but it also goes with significant budgets. You know, our products are usually, you still have to have the traditional play in the park because most mothers that have a 2-3-year-old are thinking of them, and of course they should. But eventually these children grow up, and eventually the parks become unattractive to an 8-year-old, 9-year-old. And that's where typically the Dynamo Playgrounds come in.
Yeah.
So either they add some to the park or those kind of things, but that's our strength.
Cool. How many employees do you have? You said you were a small Plantagenet company, and yet you sell internationally. The product you create is elaborate and just amazing to see. So how small is it really? What's the size of your team?
Prior to COVID, we were at just around 62 employees. And unfortunately, when the COVID hit, although we were grateful that we didn't have to do a complete shutdown because in manufacturing, et cetera, but we were down to about the 35 range for a while.
Ouch.
And now we're back up to nearing the 50 mark again.
Okay.
So we're seeing the market opening up a bit more and those kind of things. And I'd have to be honest, you know, if I could find the proper skilled people, I would probably hire another 10 people today.
Wow.
And it's that difficult to find.
Yeah, it's an ongoing issue now. What kind of talent are you looking for?
Well, I of course consider any position talent because it's not because I'll say that we need a general labor.
Absolutely.
Because these people are also very talented. But, you know, we have, so again, general laborers, we need pipe bender operators. We're about to receive our $400,000 pipe bending machine because a lot of the unique playgrounds that we do require massive pipe bending. So we actually purchased one and it'll be arriving. So, you know, we'll be needing operators for those kind of things, CNC operators, designers, of course, welders.
Yeah.
So there's a huge variety of different trades that we need.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Man, and working in a nice place like Plantagenet, it's a nice quiet village.
It is,
It's
you
a
know,
nice
there's I'd always wondered if it was going to be the right move
Yeah.
because one of our most difficult is drawing the talent out to Plantagenet or drawing people there. And so that it hasn't been easy, I would admit.
No.
So if you're living in the downtown core of Ottawa range, it's still a 50 minute to an hour drive to get to
Yeah.
us. So it's a problem still, I have to admit.
Yeah. What kind of company culture we can find at Dynamo? What is it like?
Yeah.
What's it like working there?
Well, I've always been strong on multicultural, and I'm Métis Aboriginal myself. But I can assure you that we look at every talent possible. Wouldn't matter the different ethnic backgrounds that you're from. We have Jamaicans, Haitians, to Indian, Chinese. We have it all, and it's an interesting culture because it all blends together, and it's really nice to see what we bring to the table.
Excellent.
Yes.
And you mentioned a new ride coming out, the rail,
Yes.
right? Anything else in the works? Anything cool coming up?
Yes, it's a brand new Woodline series that we've been working on for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
again, it's a very unique system. It's very hard for me to describe it to you, but it should be hitting our website in about a maximum a week
Okay.
from now, and you'll see that it brings a whole new look. And again, it's not something that we expect to sell at every street corner
Right.
or a city park, but it'll be like for example, a Mooney's Bay
Okay.
type of playground system. So, but there's some gorgeous models that are coming out.
Huh. You say Woodline. I presume it's mostly wooden.
Well,
structures?
I say Woodline because most of the equipment that because we're technically known as a rope manufacturer,
Okay.
because 70% of our materials used in our games are rope.
Huh.
So although the steel components sustain the loads and the
Right.
structure, but the main play components typically is the ropes.
Okay.
Okay, so we've always been known as a rope manufacturer. But again, in our search to find different unique product, so now instead of the product being made, the steel posts, which sometimes it's good to bring new innovation, different styles. So now most of the structural becomes wood, and it's all from a wood company out of Quebec. And basically, it's all cross-laminated timber, where I'm sure you've seen this before, where they will glue several 2x6s together, and they become one piece. And so we've made some very unique designs out of that.
Yeah.
And we're about to hit the street with that. And I think it's going to be an awesome new product. So that brings to the table, we'll be needing carpenters to understand how to build and attach our components to all these kind of things. Our next portfolio that we're going to be working on, actually we've already started, but we strongly believe that I don't want to steal the name of American Ninja, but it'll be like an American Ninja style course, but with a different twist, meaning it'll be challenging enough for the young teenagers and those kind of things. Yes, it would still be involved or installed in the playground environment, but still be challenging and unique enough
Okay.
that it'll be inviting. Again, just to bring back some of these older kids back to the park and actually utilize the equipment.
Yeah.
But they're very, very challenging courses. I already like what I see coming out of our design teams. Yeah.
Do you still go to parks, check out different rides and structures for inspiration?
I do.
Yeah?
I do. Yeah. Well, I actually have,
Do you make a point of doing it?
yes, inspirations of all different kinds. I mean, I travel the world to go to different trade shows, and it's very impressive to see how people's minds work.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But I also have 11 grandchildren, so they keep me very busy and going to parks. And I design for them because I know when I show them our designs, they're always amazed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the imagination starts going.
Yes.
I read something interesting on your website. You mentioned you're an outside-the-box company, which is clearly true. But there was another thing about the box, or a box, on your website. I saw a little piece of text that reminds the simple truth that often when you give a gift to a child that comes in a big box, they might put the gift aside and concentrate on the box more than the gift, because the gift is just the gift, but the box can be anything.
Yeah.
Is that a philosophy you try to always maintain while designing something?
Yes.
You mentioned challenge a lot, which is super important because challenge breeds competition, and competition attracts.
Attracts, correct.
But that creativity of being able to look at something, and obviously it's awesome and cool, but it inspires, it makes the imagination run.
Yes. It's one of our strengths, actually, because when we design, our intent is not necessarily to have the child figure out what it is,
Right.
rather than let their own imaginations take them wherever they want to. So, even though they'll be climbing a 50-foot high net, they're imagining themselves either in the spaceship or anywhere else. So we can't limit their intelligence or their imagination, because they do whatever they want with it. So although we assume we designed something, whether it's going to be a plane, but it's pretty interesting to watch children and how they take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let them make it a pirate ship.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be you, right?
Correct.
They'll take care of that on their own.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Richard, is there a shout out for potential candidates you would like to make now? Obviously, you're growing. You have all sorts of interesting product coming out. You're searching for employees.
Yes.
How can people get in touch and meet you guys?
Well, they're very challenging times, and this is not a complaint, but if I'd have to say even a message to a lot of the people that if you're committing to something, you need to commit for a long term. I think what I'm seeing a lot in the industry today is there's no focus on, especially on some of the younger generation. And it's difficult because, we hire them, try to hire them coming out of school. They spend 3 or 4 months and then they start looking somewhere else after we invest a lot of time and hopes that they would stay with us. A lot of times I understand it's the distance, but we always ask them in the beginning, if you're going to make a commitment, make sure it's something you really want to do for a long term, because it's costly to train people.
Mm-hmm.
We're always willing to do the investment, but it's not an easy task anymore.
No.
But we need numerous types of employees, and from, I could even say, a plant manager that will direct the symphony, to many more welders and builders, to general laborers. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities of positions available. And it's not we post a lot on the Indeed websites, of course, and sometimes it goes months without ever even getting one application.
Yeah.
And here's an example. We have been looking for welders now for the last 4 months, and most of the employees or people applying are applying out of India. So what I'm saying is that it would appear that all our people have disappeared, and I have no idea where everybody's gone, but it's challenging.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not saying that we have invested in bringing some of these people over because there's no one here applying.
Mm-hmm.
But they're hard and expensive, and they take time to invest in to bring people from overseas here without even knowing if they can actually weld or not.
Yeah. It's a big commitment on your part as
huge.
well.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yes. We had a guest on Breaktime who owns a restaurant, and he did the same thing. And he really went through explaining all the motions and what this entails and all. And he painted quite a clear picture of the level of commitment needed from the business owner to go forward to move forward with something like that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck recruiting. I hope it works out because you guys are very interesting. It's a very interesting company.
Yes.
What you build is quite beautiful. You look at it and you feel like a kid instantly.
Yes.
I think it's a great feeling, and everyone could use more of that
Good.
for sure.
Maybe at some point I'd like to come back. There's a lot of things that I haven't shared with you, but
Well,
there's
please go for it. Is there something you'd like to talk about?
well, there is a few things. I mean, what I don't like to do is spill all the beans because it's still in the process of gathering our information. But
Gotcha. Go
so
for it.
yeah, well, there's some associations with a Christian organization, and that's coming together because that's my background as well, and it's a huge part of my faith. But what we're trying to achieve here is create programs. The program is called Code, and I apologize, I forget the final abbreviation here, but what we're trying to attempt to do is, for example, give a second chance to ex-incarcerated people. So if they come out of jail and they have no backgrounds or no skills, we're willing that we would bring them to our facility. We would, pardon me, give them a 2 to 3 week training.
Okay.
We would show them how to weld. We could show them how to paint. We could show them how to sandblast. If they're good with computers, we could show them how to design.
Wow.
So, as well as there's a beautiful association being made. Again, I don't want to spill too much, but where we can also have or we will be having a record label company, and we're setting all that up as we speak. So we'll be able to give or singing lessons, etc. But we'll become one of the major players in Ottawa of a record label company.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is very far removed from what we're talking about today.
It's called diversification.
As
and,
a sound technician, I must say I'm intrigued.
You are.
So a record label, huh?
Yes.
Okay. And what
Yes.
inspired that?
Well, because of the amount of talent that I have within the company, it was brought forth of some of these people that had that kind of talent.
Yeah.
And I really can't say too much more, but
No,
I'm
that's
telling you
okay.
that it's going to happen. As well as I'm not sure if you had seen, but Dynamo also, in the heart of the pandemic, we started a company called Dynamo Sanitizing. And the objective was that we would actually be power washing playground equipment and sanitize them.
Yeah.
And so we had high hopes for that. It didn't take off as fast as we wanted to. The unfortunate part is that we were very, very close of signing some significant contracts that would have required multiple trucks across Ontario in power washing playgrounds in cities and school boards. Unfortunately, when the Ontario government announced that children can use parks at their own risk, people just backed off a little bit. But what I'm saying is that we still exist, and what we have is power washing, sanitizing trucks with high-end power washers with high-end steam or high intensity steam in them. So right now we've switched the focus to power washing all the 53-foot trucks and all this kind of stuff. So, and it's going very well. Again, extremely difficult to find drivers and general laborers to actually run the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to be careful on the size of the contracts that we take on, but
Of course.
we're knocking on doors all the time, and that's still a huge expectation of huge success coming up here. So it was just another branch. We tried to diversify.
Yeah.
That if the playground industry was always or would have been slow for a while because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
then we have something else to fall on, and it brings the music label company to the forefront because music will never die. It will always be a need
Yeah.
for that. So we're making sure that we have different branches or different avenues to go down
Yeah.
in the path.
Bold move still.
Yes.
Record label.
Yes,
Bold move.
Yes, but the talent that I have within the company, it's mind blowing to see the talents that they have, even as singers,
Yeah.
that were pretty impressive. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, the world needs more independent record labels, so
Yes.
go for it,
Yes.
please. I mean,
Look for us. It'll be called Dynamo Entertainment.
yeah?
Yes, and so we're still at the very young stage of that, but you'll know and hear of us very shortly.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm glad you shared. I had no idea all this was going on too
Yes.
behind the scenes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time. This
You're
was
welcome.
very interesting company, clearly.
Yes.
And
Yes.
very cool endeavors coming up. I wish you the best of luck. Best luck recruiting as well.
Thank
so
you.
all this amazing thing can continue.
Yes. I look forward to getting all these applications and people that are listening. And
That's right.
you're all welcome to apply, of course, and
Excellent.
we do the best we can. But thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to coming back someday.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Excellent.